6:40 a.m. in Trinidad and Tobago. Welcome back to the Now Morning Show. So studies have shown that the teenage brain continues to mature after it's finished growing and that it may be more vulnerable to stress. Psychologist Ahhalia Ramdass from the Children's Authority joins us this morning on Now to discuss challenging behavior in teens. Good morning and welcome to the show, Ms. Ramdass.
Good morning, and thank you so much for having us on the program.
It's a pleasure to have you with us on the show this morning, having such an important conversation when we see through the news, through social media, a lot of behavior that makes you question the motive behind it from our teens. Now, one of the first questions that we really want to ask you this morning is exactly what is defined as challenging behavior?
Okay, so challenging behaviors are a range of things, really. We're looking at interpersonal conflicts, we're looking at absconding, fighting, nonconformity or defiance, disrespect, stealing, inappropriate sexualized behavior, substance use. We're looking also at limited, like more academic based challenging behaviors, so limited attention and concentration. We're also looking at suicidal ideation and these things. So it's quite a range of behaviors that are classed as challenging depending on the developmental stage of the child, depending on a lot of other factors as well. So it's not just when we say challenging behaviors, we don't only mean the fighting that we're seeing in school and the fighting that's quite prevalent right now.
Understood. Thank you so much for clearing that up for us this morning. So given that now that we know that there's so much more, would it be fair to say that the contributing factors really vary to this sort of behavior?
Yes, so the contributing factors do vary, and they vary as well quite extensively. So contributing factors to challenging behaviors can be abuse and neglect. It can be trauma. It can be a domestic violence within the home. It can also be mental health conditions and concerns, developmental conditions and concerns. It can be lack of supervision, all of these things, low socioeconomics, so there's challenges within the home due to, financial constraints and these things. So a lot of different causes, a lot of different reasons why our children could and sometimes are acting out in school that we don't tend to pay attention to because we're so hyper focused on the actual behavior and the fighting and these things, or we're so focused on labeling our youth or labeling our children that we're not seeing that something is causing these behaviors. Also exposure to social media and these things, cyberbullying, all of these things are contributing factors. But we want to focus so much on labeling a child a bad child or labeling our children disrespectful, violent, or focus on the fighting and all of these issues that we're not really looking at why are our children behaving this way. We have to remember, like you rightly said, children are still developing. They're still getting a sense of who they are. They're still learning. They don't have all of the skills and the know-how to navigate their world as adults do. And, we also have to be aware that behavior is communication. So from an infant comes straight up when you're not able to verbalize what's wrong with you, when you're not able to verbalize what's the issue, you tend to act in a particular way, you tend to behave in a particular way. So we have to remember that behavior is a form of communication. And oftentimes our children are saying something to us, right? Not pointedly, so they may not be acting out to say something. They may not be associating with communication themselves, but they are saying something to us.
I completely agree with what you're saying, Ms. Ramdass. Are there any clear red flags that parents can see in their children at home that may be indicating that there is something that they need to speak about?
So there are red flags that you can look at, but I have to say this before we go into the red flags. It's important because children are still developing. Some of the red flags or some of the things that we would term as red flags can also be due to just development, right? So when we have our young ladies or even our young men going through puberty and you're going through these changes, we do get irregularities in the mood and these things, which is normal to development. However, it's also a flag if you see extreme changes in your child's mood. If you see social withdrawal from your child, that's a red flag. But you can't differentiate or distinguish between red flag, normal development, unless you know your child, unless you have a solid foundation with your child, a relationship with your child, and unless you communicate openly with your child, you're not going to necessarily pick up on it as a red flag. You may just pass it off as normal development, right? So we're looking out for changes in mood, social withdrawal. We're looking out for the way that they speak, if they're, saying things that are a bit off, suicide ideation and these things. Sometimes they say little things like just being fed up of life or wishing they weren't here. And we just need to be paying attention to all of those things. Changes in their sleep patterns, changes in their eating habits, changes in their interactions. So you may know them to have particular friends most of their life, and then all of a sudden there's someone brand new and they're possibly exhibiting different personality traits and behaviors, and that you're not quite sure where it's coming from and these things. So we just need to know our children, know what is the baseline for them, the normal for them, and just pay attention to different things. Of course, bearing in mind context, like I said, some of these flags are regular, normal developmental things, right? So it's important that you know what's happening with your child in other settings as well. Are you in communication with the teacher or with officials at school to know if behavior is also off at school? So you kind of have an idea. Is it isolated to the home setting? Or is it something happening across settings? And how different is it from their normal behavior? So it's just important for us to always be aware and be paying attention to our children, growing in relationship with our children, so that we're able to identify these things.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us. So, Ms. Ramdass, just listening to you this morning, one of the key things that we've heard from the red flags, the fact there are so many other contributing factors, is essentially we also need to pay attention to our children. Mm-hmm. Would you say that is one of the best things that we can do at this point in time?
It is one of the absolute best things that you can do at this time. We have to create safe spaces for children. Our children have to be able to trust us. They have to be able to come to us when they're experiencing challenges. And they can only do that if you have a relationship with them. So I'm not talking about just being in the same room with them. Sometimes we sit our kids down in front of a television. We're in the same room, so we say we're spending time. But that's not really spending time. We have to have conversation with our children. Ask them how their day was, just get to know them. We have to actually have a relationship where they know they can come to us and say anything without fear of retribution or without fear of being told, well, don't say that, or, why are you bothering me now? And these things. They have to be able to come to us with anything and know that we would sit down, we would listen objectively, we would allow them their space to express themselves, talk. So it's important. It's important that that's the bedrock, that's the foundation for our children, just having that solid relationship, having that open line of communication with them, so that they have that safe space, that anchor, as they navigate life, as they navigate development. Because I know we were there. We were all there at some point, adolescence, and we know how difficult that can be with all of the different changes and transitions that we experience. So it's important that we know home is a safe space. Home is a space that we have a voice, that we can be heard, that we can ask the hard questions and get the answers and the direction that we need.
Thank you so much, Ms. Ramdass, for being with us this morning on the Now Morning Show. Looking forward to having you back with us again soon.
Thank you so much for having us.
All right, we're going to a quick break and we'll be back. This is the Now Morning Show.